We're on.
Okay. Hi, my name's Danny Fleming.
And I'm Marcus Collins from the MA Properties Online team, and this evening we're going to give you a market update of what's going on in the market, specifically, not exclusively, but specifically around Arlington.
For May 2020.
For May, yeah. Well, yeah, for May.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in June. I was thinking May, we're in June. I said we're in June, but yeah, for May 2020. So that's what this evening's all about.
So thank you for joining us. So let's just go over and let's let you know the MA Properties Online team. There's Marcus and I on the sofa as well with agents, and we've got quite a few support folks that help us on a full-time basis, and our dog joining us.
More on him later, I think, a few times actually.
So anyway, the agenda for tonight, we're going to get into smart decisions. So we'll start it with what's going on statistically with the market and what we're seeing in this time of coronavirus. We'll talk about selling in 2020, what that looks now, buying in 2020, what that looks like, and also our virtual buying and selling. So let's get off into smart decisions. It's probably worth mentioning the big picture view of where we are. We all know that we're in a global recession, the global pandemic, which has really created quite a bit of turmoil in everyone's lives, and so sorry if you know people that have been impacted badly with this. We've had quite a desperate time of it all, but also on top of that, we also have the Black Lives Matter movement going on now. Now I know that this has all got us quite in it's engaged everyone, most people, and we've seen a lot of communities really coming to a forefront in making making a statement with this, and hopefully there's going to be enough going on around the world to make a difference. Here's a video of just a vigil that Marcus and I went to last week, where there's lots and lots of communities around that are doing these, and just the response that we're seeing with these is just astounding. So we just wanted to acknowledge that. But let's get on to some real estate stats. Marcus, on to you.
So, what I'm going to do is give you a quick synopsis of what happened in 2019, specifically because as we come out of this, and I'll have more to say about that as well, what the predictions that we made in January this year, based on what we were seeing in 2019, will begin to play out. Different at the moment, and I'll talk lots more about that, but as we come out of this, so those predictions that we made will begin to kick in. So, headline numbers for Arlington, clearly, a buoyant market, 63% rise since the peak in 2005. There almost wasn't a dip in 2008. You can hardly see it if you look at the average sale prices. There just wasn't there. Key thing though is that the median sale price in Arlington, $821 at the end of 2019. If you compare that with Lexington, Winchester, Belmont, they're upwards over $1 million, in fact somewhere around 1.2, 1.3 million. So substantial price difference between, for example, Lexington and Arlington, and that will have large implications in terms of what's really affecting the market in Arlington, why essentially it is so buoyant. Let's take a look though, first of all, at some hard numbers around inventory levels. And so what the inventory level is a snapshot of how many homes are available to buy on the first of the month. So every month we've been doing this now for, over a decade, I imagine, yeah.
A couple of decades.
We look at how many homes are there available to buy, and as you can see, the areas in 11, 12, 13, they began to drop. There was lots of inventory. Here we were really in just after the 2008 crash, where there was lots of inventory on the market. Then it took a dip, and it stayed there until 18, into 19, but as you can see in that second half of 2018 and then going into 2019, inventory levels rose, indicative of too much supply or not enough demand. Essentially what's happened here is demand has continued or rose as we got to 2013 onwards. What happened in that 18 and 19 is that demand started to slow slightly. Not that much, but it's certainly enough to have an impact on the market. I've given you the inventory levels for 2020 there. I have a lot more detail on that in a minute. It'll make a lot more sense in terms of what's happening in terms of that. So that's the kind of big picture of the inventory, very much driven by buyers, buyer demand. That's why such low inventory. Changing though, second half of 18 into 19, and then that continuing now into 2020. Home sales are relatively static in the town, around about, give or take, 300 to between 280 and 300 home sales every year, so relatively static. Blue is existing homes in this graph, green is new construction, and the orange color, there are a small one at the bottom, are the off-market teardowns. Those are homes that actually don't come on the market. Developers, builders buy them directly off the homeowner, convert them into new construction. So a little bit of double counting if people are kind of thinking about that in terms of those oranges that eventually become green, become new construction. We like to look at a ratio of the sell price to the list price because it's a great indication of how strong the market is from a buyer's perspective. If the buyers are confident about a town, they will come in and they will bid a home higher than it actually is. And so what that means is that sell price to list price ratio increases. And as you can see in Arlington, since 2013 in fact onwards, it was well over 100%. In fact, in 2017 and 2018, we had 104%. What we did see, and this kind of indicative of that changing environment, is a slight dip in 2019 as it came down to about 102. Now, to put that in perspective, it's still over 100%. It's still a very strong town. Lexington, Winchester, for example, were under 100%. So it is still a very strong town, but we saw that little bit of weakening in 2019, and our predictions were that that would continue into 2020. Median price for single family, this is 821, slight rise 2018, 2019, not as substantial as we've seen in the past. So say 821 median sale price for single family, and then condominiums on the other hand are around 617. So much as it may surprise some people, that's a very affordable town, a very affordable price. And so now we're going to take a quick look at, so who are the buyers in Arlington at the moment? What's driving this market? What's driving the prices higher? What's driving that sell price to list price ratio to be over 100%? This graph from the Census Bureau shows you how many people are in which age bracket. So age bracket runs, from 0 all the way up to 80 as it were going up the graph. You can see two areas which are important. The first bump in this, if you like, large number of people in that age bracket is the top yellow bar, and that's the baby boomers. Those are the children born after the Second World War. Now they're beginning to think about downsizing. So that top bar is the downsizers. The lower yellow bar are the millennials, the first-time home buyers. And as you can see, there's a large number of those. And if you think about Arlington, it's an ideal destination for both of those groups. The first-time home buyers moving out of perhaps Cambridge, Somerville, Boston, the rentals there, moving into their first home, perhaps a condominium, 600,000, or a single family at 800,000. So that's Arlington, a great destination for them. It's got a good school system, vibrant town, close to Boston. It begins to tick all the boxes for the first-time home buyers. For the downsizers, it begins to tick boxes as well, because they would like to move to a town which is close to where they're currently living. So if you think about Lexington, Winchester, Belmont, Arlington's ideally situated. They don't want to move too far away. They want to stay near their circle of friends. And so all of a sudden we find that Arlington is a destination for both downsizers and first-time home buyers. And that's really what's driving the market. So why the dip in the end of 18 and into 19? Well, that's because at that time, and if you take yourself back to 2019, seems like a long time ago, in early 2019 there was discussion around economic uncertainty. Are we going to go into a recession? That dissipated somewhat in the middle of the year, but then lo and behold, at the end of the year it came back. Are we going to go into a recession? And as it turns out, we actually did in early 2020. Irrespective of COVID, the United States went into a recession in that early part of 2020. So the thought, the perception that there was going to be some economic uncertainty actually played out even before the situation where we find ourselves today. So as we saw 2020, and I put these up because I think the reason we're putting these up is that it will play out as we kind of come out of where we are right now. Sellers, they've got to find somewhere to live, and that can be quite tough. We certainly found this in the more expensive towns. Difficult to find that next home because they were competing with, for example, the first-time home buyers. And so many sellers actually stayed in the market they were in. Now, as 2019 kicked in, so sellers began to become perhaps a little bit less choosy and begin to think about coming into put their home on the market because of the thought of the economic uncertainty. So that's what happened there. On top of that, so an increase in the number of sellers, we had static number of buyers. There weren't enough buyers in the market to absorb the excess inventory that these sellers, thinking about the economic uncertainty, brought to the market. And that's why we saw an increase in inventory at the end of 18 and throughout 2019. And so our predictions for 2020 were that we would be tending towards a more balanced market. Predictions, for example, in the more expensive towns around were that we would be in a balanced market. But our predictions for Arlington, it would tend towards that more balanced market. And so, the economic uncertainty, but the key thing, we saw that price appreciation would begin to slow throughout 2020. So as we went into 2020, price appreciation would begin to slow. So that was the view in January of this year. Now let's kind of fast forward, if you will, to where we find ourselves today and take a look at what's happening in the market and what's going to happen, more importantly, perhaps, as we move forward. And the first question we need to ask ourselves, at what point do we return back to normal? These graphs, I've shown them before if you've seen our seminars. The top one is the number of tests. The lower orange one is the number of confirmed cases. Both of them heading downwards, certainly the number of confirmed cases. And perhaps more importantly, the blue line here is the number of confirmed deaths, definitely on a downward track. So Massachusetts, on the face of it, looks to be on that downward track. Now, as we think about how we're going to come out of this, clearly that's not the same story we're hearing throughout the United States. We felt, for example, Danny and I were talking the other day, one of our sons lives in San Francisco, another one in Los Angeles. We thought California got a jump on Massachusetts, and certainly the number of cases they were seeing was lower than what we were seeing. But here we are now, fast forward 6 weeks, I guess, and the cases in California are beginning to rise. So there's a lot of uncertainty. What we thought, hey, what they did was really good, but...
Well, it was one of the states that they talked about yesterday. There's 14 states that have had the highest number of tests, positive tests, that they've ever had. And it was California, Florida... I can't remember the others, sorry about that. But
there was a lot. Texas,
really,
there was a large
really
number.
Surprised.
Right. So on the face of it, Massachusetts is doing rather well. A little bit more to say about what it means for the bigger picture, but we're doing okay. Clearly, that isn't generally the case throughout the United States, and that will have implications for the way that Massachusetts comes out of this downturn. So in terms of the number of listings, interesting to map how 2019 played out against 2020. It seems like a long time ago again, but we had a relatively mild winter. And so what we saw in 2020, in January of this year, and actually into February as well, more homes coming on the market than we saw in 2019, just primarily because of the mild winter. The buyers were already out. There wasn't very much snow on the ground. And so we see an increase in the number of listings in January and February of 2020 compared to 2019. Early March was about the same. First 2 weeks of March was about the same, but then we saw the big hit, and it really hit listings the second half of March, not just in Arlington, in other towns too. We mapped this for a whole number of towns, and it really hit a number of towns in that second half of March. And as you can see, in April, we were down probably, about 25 or 30 homes, down where we would have expected to be. March came in, I split March into two. May came in, I split May into two just to see if there was a difference between early and late May. Looks to be about the same number of listings
which surprised us.
Yeah, it
we were
did,
anticipating that there'd be far less homes coming on the market
Right.
in May as compared to
Certainly
last year.
certainly the first 2 weeks of May anyway. We had this debate about when are we going to come out of this. And from a buyer perspective, is it going to be late May? Is it going to be in early June? When's that going to be? And it turns out that it looks like it was very much in that kind of mid to end of May. We got back to where we are. So we've got roughly the same number of listings coming on the market in May than we saw in 2019. But we've still got, of course, those listings that didn't come on in second half of March and April to come on the market. And we'll talk a little bit more about difference between occupied and unoccupied homes. What we've seen is that the majority of homes coming on the market are either unoccupied or the sellers managed to go away while it was on the market, because it's been
That was in May so far that we're seeing
right
that.
now. We'll,
Yeah.
we'd say we may see that change. So.
Yeah.
What does that mean for listings kind of moving forward? So January through May are actuals, June onwards are projections. So we anticipate we'll have a lot more homes coming on the market in that June timeframe than we would ordinarily expect. A few more in July, but I think given the way we're coming out of this pandemic, I think we'll see more in that June timeframe. The majority will be kind of heavily weighted to June as opposed to July. So anticipate in June a large number of homes coming on the market. Once we get about halfway through the year, halfway through the month, I'll do an update on Martini Monday where we'll kind of see how are we tracking against last year for the first 2 weeks of June. What we anticipate is that we'll see more than we did in 2019. So, but time will tell. So, big picture here is that June, to some extent July, we will see more listings coming on the market than we would have seen typically, seasonally based, because we've got missing inventory from second half of March and into April. And that's really the challenge for us, because we're going to see a lot of homes coming on the market, perhaps more homes coming on the market than we would ordinarily expect, just because people are wondering what's the long-term implications of this correction, this recession that we're in and we will continue to stay in. What's the long-term implications of this in terms of house prices? So will we see more homes coming on the market in that kind of June timeframe as people think, now is the peak, I'm better off coming on in 2020 than I am in waiting till 2021 or 2020 or 22. So this slide we've shown before. It kind of gives you a sense of where we are in terms of showings and so on. Key thing that we've kind of added to this, and I think as we kind of roll this out, perhaps certainly by the middle of June and certainly by the July when we do this, we will have changed that second. It's red. I said yellow last night, but it's red. The red bar, which is the number of open houses. We're seeing more coming on. We'll have more to say about this in a moment. But those are beginning to ramp up, and so are the number of private showings. I think if I was doing this today, I drew this a few days ago, I would change the slope of those graphs to make them a little steeper as well, certainly in terms of the number of private showings. But as you can see, we did see a dip. Now we're in that kind of May-June time frame. We're moving out of the lockdown phase where it was difficult to show homes into that buyer confidence returns phase, and that's kind of where we are right now. So that's how we see this playing out. So is it a U? Is it a V? Good question. And I think there's some question around which way this is going to go. I've shown this before. It's a graph that came out of a McKinsey study looking at the different scenarios. The OECD came out with a study today to say it's definitely a U-shaped. It is not a V-shaped recession. They're looking at it from a global perspective. And I think we can see some of this with not all parts of the United States looking in today anyway as good a shape as Massachusetts is in terms of the number of cases. It looks like there is a kind of a rise happening in say 14 states moving forward, and so it does look like, based on people who study this, that we are looking into some kind of U-shaped recession, perhaps with an increasing number of cases in other states. Perhaps in Massachusetts, although we'll see. We seem to be doing quite well in terms of that so far. So that's, where are we? Almost every scenario. I mean, before we even had the studies that are coming out now, almost every scenario required that for a V-shaped recession to occur, everything had to be right. and that clearly wasn't the case. You know, layering on top what we were talked about previously about the uncertainty we're seeing at the moment too. So it seems pretty clear that we are heading for a U-shaped recession. The question, I think, is, you know, yes, a lot of people can work from home, but not everybody can, of course. And what are the implications of this for small businesses? They're going to be hit harder than large companies. Also, the United States is very much a service-based economy, and that's been hit far harder than manufacturing. Manufacturing has the tendency to bounce back very quickly, whereas service-based is much more difficult. And so, you know, it really does depend on kind of where we are. But I think right now we're looking at U-shape continuing through 2020 and perhaps into 2021. So that's kind of where the best minds are saying we are today. In terms of lending, interest rates are clearly very low. Question though is if we are heading for a U-shaped recession and a much longer downturn than we perhaps would anticipate and expect and want, what does that mean for the banks in terms of where they're going to put their money? Are they going to be, you know, very cautious about lending money to homeowners, or are they going to be, you know, somewhat open about it? Today, what we've seen is a little bit of tightening in the market, specifically around higher credit scores, a little bit more scrutiny around loan to value. But interestingly, we were listening to a presentation just the other day. A broker in Florida said that during the lockdown, he made all of the agents in his agency go on foreclosure training. We didn't see the kind of foreclosures that Florida and Nevada and that saw in the 2008, but I thought that was quite telling that there was this thought, this perception, if you will, that perhaps there's going to be a wider impact on the housing market than perhaps we expect, and perhaps the higher impact that we're going to get in here in Massachusetts. Hard to tell, but that came as something of a shock to me, I have to say, when this broker said that. It was kind of, whoa, really? I hadn't even thought of that. We haven't done that, for example. But that was kind of interesting in terms of their perception on how they thought that might kind of play out as we go through 2020. So some thoughts there. I'd say hard to know quite. We'll see more as this kind of plays out in the summer.
I think I'm doing very well being quiet.
You are. I don't know why you're being very quiet. You're busy typing.
He always gives me a hard time.
I do.
I keep talking and interrupting him. So I'm being very good.
Very good, dear. What does this mean in terms of, you know, major effects for the buyers? It's quite interesting. Let me show you the Dow Jones for actually year to date for this year. The Dow first dipped on the 21st of February. That seems like an age ago right now. Interestingly, that had an impact almost immediately on the higher priced homes, because people who are looking at, you know, perhaps have been saving for longer, have a significant amount of wealth in the stock market. All of a sudden they saw their net wealth decline considerably. And we had the situation where, because of that, higher priced homes were coming back on the market in that second half of February as a direct consequence of the stock market crash. As we got into that second half of March, as you remember that graph that showed there were almost no listings in the second half of March, that's when it had wider implications. And so it really was that, you know, stock market hit in mid to late Feb. We didn't have the lockdown, I think, until the 27th of March, almost 4 weeks later. And that's really when we saw the wider implications. And therefore, given the price point that Arlington finds itself at, that's where the impact, where it really began to impact Arlington. It had an impact on the more expensive towns earlier than that, in that kind of late Feb, early March timeframe. So that's kind of something to a point to think about. So so this kind of outlines that. That was kind of interesting in terms of how that happened. In terms of the difference in thinking around buyers and sellers, it's quite interesting. Buyers thinking, you know, maybe I should put off until 2021, perhaps prices may be lower, but from a seller's perspective, we're getting two viewpoints. Maybe I should sell now, just in case prices are lower in 2021, or if I delay in 2021, will prices be higher then? So there really is an awful lot of uncertainty in terms of, and a difference to some extent, between buyers and sellers thinking right now. In terms of will prices be higher in 2021, it's hard to say at this point. It really does depend on how well Massachusetts comes out of this recession, how the wider national picture will impact what happens in Massachusetts too. So it's hard to tell at this point. I think we'll have a better feel for this as we get into probably Q3. Too early to say today as we begin to see that increase in listings. It is fair to say that there's going to be a lot more listings coming on in June, which means it's going to shift very much from a seller's market where there was almost no inventory, very much into a buyer's market where there was no inventory, into a buyer's market when we have lots of inventory. Sorry, I got that the wrong way around.
And sorry, I'm not distracted. I'm not just working. Someone's just emailed saying, how do they get on? So I'm just doing this.
Would you like me to do the selling in 2020, please?
No, I can do it.
So you've heard enough from me. It's high time Danny got on to selling in 2020.
So selling in 2020, it looks a lot like, well, when does this make sense to sell in 2020? The answer is right now. We have seen, when we typically talk about real estate, the best time to come on the market, we always talk about the very beginning of the spring season being the best time to sell, where we get a lot of energy in the market. Because if you think of it from the perspective that a lot of buyers spend winter hibernating. They're thinking over winter, I need to buy this year. I need to buy this year. I need to buy this year. Let's move this year. And when we get the first couple of weekends of nice weather, there's no threats of snowstorms, those buyers are out in force, checking out the market because they're thinking about buying. But at that period of time, there's not as much inventory on the market as what we would typically see in May and June. So what happens is the buyers get really, really excited about these homes. There's not much coming on the market and there's a lot more energy associated with it, and people will often pay a lot more money for them because they're competing with other buyers, because remember, all of the buyers are out in force, not much inventory. So what we have, if you look at this graph that we've described there, we had a lot of homes not coming on the market. So to us, it was incredibly important to try and identify when the buyer confidence increased, when the buyers were out in force again, because we really did see the buyers begin to hunker down in April. We were still bringing homes on the market up until the last weekend in March. There was still buyer activity, but it was really starting to sort of, drop off a little bit. But it didn't correlate when the stay-at-home advisory came in play. The stay-at-home advisory came into place sometime mid-March type timeframe. There was still lots and lots of buyer activity occurring up until the last weekend in March. So there was no correlation. We anticipated that there would be no correlation with the stay-at-home advisory lifting as well as to when the buyers became a lot more confident in getting out and looking for homes. And because we had some vacant homes on the market, we knew we'd have a pretty good idea when the buyer confidence increased. So when that buyer confidence started increasing, we were quickly bringing homes on the market because we wanted to try and replicate, if you like, that same dynamic that occurs at the beginning of the spring market to when the buyer confidence returned. And we saw that buyer confidence returning about the first week in May. So we've been bringing homes on the market since then. And it is very, very, and it's been successful. That's what's going on. And we anticipate that there will be more homes coming on the market, as Marcus just characterized before, to take up with the excess homes that didn't come on the market. They'll be starting to come on the market soon. So the sooner we can get homes on the market, the better, because the buyers are out there and they're buying now. So how do we go about bringing a home on the market? in this time of coronavirus. So let's talk about the general characteristics that we're seeing with bringing a home on the market, and then we'll talk more about what it was like during the lockdown phase and what it's like and what it's beginning to get more so with the buyer confidence returning. So in general now, there's just no open houses, no physical open houses. We were seeing those open house attendees starting to drop off the second to third week in March. So the open house activity has been waning for a while. We even saw the last couple of weeks of us doing physical open houses that the buyers wouldn't even take physical brochures anymore. They just didn't want to touch those sorts of things. Marketing is all virtual. What we do as marketing is all virtual. It's you know, the video 3D tour, website, floor plans, all of those types of things. We do those for every home. Actually, it's interesting because the virtual assets that we have for a home, we've been doing all of these for about 5 years so far. So really, we didn't have to change too much when this all happened because we're already doing it. But where we were going, we have changed some things slightly with it, but we've been quite. I should probably explain. No, we'll get into that a little bit further along. One of the things that we talk about now is we do recommend completing a seller's disclosure to our sellers. Massachusetts is a voluntary disclosure state. And during normal periods of time, we were probably seeing 30 to 40% of our sellers disclosing and the rest not. We would recommend filling in a seller's disclosure now, only because in this period of time, it is a lot harder for a buyer to get in to see a home, in that, you know, there's no overlapping appointments, where some buyers agents during the real lockdown phase weren't even showing houses. Some towns were preventing showings happening. So if there's a seller's disclosure for a home, the buyers have a lot more warm and fuzzies about not seeing the home as much as they would have normally and still feeling confident to be able to make an offer. And the buyer's behavior changed quite dramatically from about mid-March. We all, as I say, we always do digital virtual assets for a home, and we track the number of times those assets are viewed. So we have a pretty good understanding of how many times people view those. Well, in about the beginning of March, those numbers started skyrocketing, the number of people looking at the virtual assets like the 3D tour and the video and things. And that corresponded with the time that we started seeing real drop-offs with the number of people coming to physical open houses. So buyers were changing their behavior rather than physically going to an open house to then try and identify whether this house met their needs. They were doing all of their, does this house meet my needs, online. And then they would do a private showing if it did meet what they were looking for. So we see a very, very direct correlation. Now we see a direct correlation between the number of views of, say, the 3D tour with the number of private showings. And there's another direct correlation between the number of private showings and the number of offers we have on a home. So the buyer's behavior has changed dramatically, and that's really important when you're talking about selling a home. Now, we go into, we want to talk about, and it's probably not as applicable now during the lockdown, talking about the differences with whether it's a vacant home or an occupied home, but we've deliberately kept this information in here only because there is some talk that potentially there will be, you know, this may come back. Oh God, I hope it doesn't. But we wanted to characterise what the difference is between during the lockdown phase for vacant and occupied homes. So during lockdown, really not much changed dramatically. Contractors, from the preparation phase, contractors were very, very willing to be in a vacant home because their work had dropped off dramatically because a lot of people who would normally have them at their home doing work didn't want them in the door. So contractors were screaming out for work. We still do full staging because if a home's vacant, we can get in there and it's safe for our stagers, it's safe for our movers, it's safe for all of the people associated. Marketing is virtual, as we talked about. The showings were a little bit more restricted, just with the number of people being in the home and also overlapping appointments. Closings have been virtual. Now, if we look at the difference during lockdown, again, for an occupied home, this is a different scenario than a vacant home. So the preparation phase, contractors were not as willing to go into occupied homes, just as the owners weren't as willing to have contractors come into the home, because everyone's hunkering down, having strangers come in the home, things like this. Not a great thing. So some of the homes that came on or didn't come on because the preparation phase was missing, the contractors weren't coming in. Staging, rather than us going into a home with a lot of the hard surface staging materials that we do, it was limited to soft furnishings. Our staging coordinator would do a virtual consultation, FaceTime or Zoom or something like this with the seller wandering around the home, and our staging coordinator would look at those sorts of things and then come up with a staging plan that was limited to soft furnishings. And then she would collect them all together in a big bag, drop them off at the seller's front door. The seller could leave them out there for 2 days, if they were worried about bringing them in, so we figured it out. Marketing, the same thing. The showings, very restricted. Some towns around the area actually did not allow showings to occur, private showings. Did not allow private showings to occur on occupied homes. They banned it. I'm not really sure how they could ban it or what they could
call it town ordinance, apparently.
Town ordinance.
I've no idea what that means, but apparently they could do that.
So of an occupied home, it was tough. Closings again, virtual. Now if we talk about the phase that we're in right now, so this is more applicable to anyone listening to this right now. The preparation for a vacant home, again, hasn't really changed. They're really happy to be in vacant homes. Full staging again, marketing virtual still. The showings getting less restrictive. They're still not allowing overlapping showings, but they're not worried about whether there's 6 people in a family group want to go into a home versus 1 or 2 people, in the family group going into a home. And closings virtual. The majority of homes that want to come on the market or do come on the market are occupied homes. So this is probably the key one. The preparation phase, we are seeing contractors progressively willing to go into occupied homes, but more importantly, we're starting to see the sellers, owners of those homes, being more willing to have the contractors in the home. We had our dog groom today. He was a really shaggy dog and his hair was getting matted, even though we kept trying to do that. But our dog groomer was willing to come, and there were certain things that we needed to do and to have them in the door. But we were willing to have her come, and she was willing to come back into home. So we're starting to see tradespeople starting to, or service-oriented folks, starting to be more willing to do that. Staging, as we're going forward, we're starting to do more and more staging of occupied homes. There, we might ask that the sellers leave for the day when we come in and stage a home. That is changing on a dynamic basis, but we are definitely with staging a home. We staged a home today and staged a home yesterday, so it's starting to happen more frequently now. The showings are progressively getting less restricted. Again, we're seeing more and more groups of people going, and more people that are not what we were seeing during the lockdown, that if an occupied home came on the market and it was obvious that it was occupied, the buyers weren't as comfortable of making appointments in that home. Now we're starting to see more and more showings of occupied homes and buyers being willing to do those. So now this is the graph again that we were talking about. You can see, actually I should point this out, this is probably mid-March that I mentioned, where the open houses just basically stopped. But you could see what we were talking about, the number of people that were viewing all of the digital assets we have started ramping dramatically up, and is still there as well. So just to summarize the two things that we talked about, this makes it a little bit easier. Let's look at the occupied phase. So you can see during lockdown, everything was pretty tough. But now that we're in the buyer confidence returns period of time, we're starting to get a little bit more back to normal. It's getting, as each week is going by, because this buyer confidence returning phase started in the beginning of May. So we're about 4 weeks into it now. Each week it's getting more and more back to normal, if you like, just with some sort of still restrictions, obviously. So what we're seeing in this phase, we're seeing an increasing number of homes coming on the market. As you saw with the actual data for May, it really wasn't too much different to what it was last year. So there is increased competition with the sellers chasing the buyers that are out there. But it's probably what we see is very much important in this period of time. There are still the 5 keys that are incredibly important to get the highest price. Smart decisions, knowing what's going on, knowing what's happening, the preparation. Now, part of this preparation and staging is it's so important to create a positive visceral feel when a buyer walks in the door. Because if a buyer walks in the door and they fall in love with your home, just look around and think, oh wow, this feels good, then that's key to getting the highest price, which is why during the lockdown phase, if it was an occupied home, the preparation, it's tougher to do, and the staging was tougher to do. So now is prime time for occupied homes to come on if they've been waiting to come on, and we've got a few coming on the market in the next few weeks. Marketing, really key. Just as a point, how important marketing is. I'm working with a buyer who there was a home came on the market 3 weeks or so ago, and they just had, I think, 20 photos, all odd photos and things. And my buyer sort of said to me, Danny, can you find out if they've got a 3D tour or video or something like this, because we can't really work out what the house is like. And they said, we're not willing to go into the home without identifying before we even walk in the door that it meets some of the needs that we have. And no, the agent hadn't done a video, hadn't done a 3D tour. The photos weren't very good. They, all of this sort of stuff, no floor plan. So my buyers basically said, that's it. No, we're not interested in that home. We're not even bothered going in to see it. This is why it's so important, because if you don't have those things for these buyers who are worried about their safety, they don't want to go into a home where they can't identify if the home meets their needs before they step in the door. So which is why the virtual assets have ramped up tremendously. Marketing, still the same, and excellence through teamwork. Now, we normally do a different seminar to this. Obviously this has had to change because of the times that we're in. Doing it online is one of those things right now. Normally we pivoted. Okay.
Apparently that's the latest buzzword.
We normally do these in person during each week. And it's been really interesting to have to try and work through what do we do online. So our seminars are completely different to normal, but I wanted to go over just a couple of the key things. I don't want to sort of spend too much time on it because, but this is how particular type of market. So your preparation services. We've been doing the seller will walk around the home with their phone, show us around, and we'll progressively, we give advice on different things that can bring. It's now progressively moving to be more on site. I've gone into lots and lots of homes in the last month with a mask and gloves on. So it's, trying to keep it as safe as possible for the sellers and safe as possible for us. But it is changing so that we can get the preparation services going now. So the advice we give you is on what the highest return on investment projects are. Paint is key, but I'll also give you advice on the projects that are not worth doing. I'm not going to suggest something that might cost $2,000 to do and might give you a $2,000 increase in sales price. I might suggest something that'll cost $5,000 to do and will give you a $50,000 return on your sales price, but I'm not going to suggest the busy work. And then you can decide the level of assistance you'd like. We can provide you just the contractor resources that are pretty responsive, or we can assist with getting quotes for you. We can coordinate the contractors and we can help oversee the project, in conjunction with you. So it's really your call as to how involved you want us to be. We are finding that there's a lot of sellers right now that do want us to be pretty heavily involved with these sorts of things, which is great. And partly I think that because of that is both parents are working from home. They're still trying to juggle kids because school's off. There's no summer camps anymore, all of this type of thing. So people are juggling a lot of eggs and trying not to break them.
You handle it all for us.
Yeah, so,
Right.
we can take over and help with that. You're still heavily involved, but on an advisory, we once had someone say, I can't remember what they said, but it was really basically, they wanted to be an interested observer. And, so we can help with all of that. So here's a couple of examples. Wallpaper on the walls, floors refinishing, curtains down, just making the home feel fresher and cleaner and light makes a huge difference with the price. Paint, to be honest, gives us the highest return on investment, period. If the home feels clean with fresh paint, it's huge. Here's a scenario where sometimes we will suggest this to be done. This before photo was a home that had come on the market with another agent a few months previously, and it sat on the market and sat on the market and sat on the market. So the sellers got us in, and I suggested, I think you probably should paint the kitchen. They did also replace a couple of appliances, but what was happening was that it made this home feel so much newer and more renovated because all of the builders with new construction are putting new white kitchens in. So just by painting the kitchen, and it wasn't expensive to do, and with the professionals, we ended up getting competing offers on the home when it came on the market. So that's the difference. Sometimes it's just, that's all it takes. Here's another one. This one, actually, this one, this iteration, because this is the before photo, again, painting the kitchen cabinets. That's all we did with that. The granite's the same, the appliances are the same, the light fixtures are the same. We just painted the cabinets. This one we bought on the market the end of March this year, competing offers. This was, I think, the last open house that we did, so that was probably mid-March. And it came on the market at 1.7 and we got competing offers for the home. But that's what happens when you just smarten the home up. What a lot of folks don't realize is that tiles in a bathroom paint up beautifully. You can see this is an example of a bathroom. If a buyer walks into this bathroom, they're automatically now starting to think, I've got to spend some money before we even move in. I've got to renovate the bathroom because it feels dated. But this same bathroom with some paint on the tiles, and there's the paint that is painted onto the tiles before you put the final coat on, is just called a bonding primer. It bonds to the tiles. And so we painted the tiles and took off the wallpaper and just put a fresh coat of paint on there, and you can see the floor tiles are identical. They're the same. But when a buyer walks into this bathroom, they think, they're not immediately thinking, I've got to renovate. And so that adds dollars onto what we will get for the home, because here they're thinking how much money they have to spend to renovate the bathroom after they've bought it, immediately after they've bought it. Here, they're not thinking about how much money they have to spend on the bathroom to make it livable for them. They might think about renovating in 5 years' time, but that's not an immediate cost. Here's another one too. I know I'm sort of still showing the painted tiles, but what I wanted to point out is you've got laminate cabinets, laminate counter and laminate faced cabinets. Using that same bonding primer, you can paint the cabinets and the counters. So again, this older style laminate dates a bathroom. Painting it white, it's fresh and clean and doesn't need renovating immediately. Here's an example though of a more modern bathroom where this is cherry cabinetry, but with painting the cabinets, you see here that immediately it's indicative of new construction, because this is what the builders are doing in new construction homes. But it's not just paint on the inside. When you look at this home here, this one has an interesting story in that it was for sale by owner for about 8 months. Then it was on the market with an agent for about 12 months. And then the seller tried again as a for sale by owner for about 4 months before calling us to come in. And what we did is got them to take the trees down, the scraggly trees. Yep, they're scraggly trees. They don't really look very attractive. But what was key was we had a pale blue siding and purple trim with beige garage doors. Look at the difference to the home with just painting the trim and garage doors and painting the front door. I told you the story of how long this was on the market. When we bought it on the market, we had competing offers on the home. So it's all about presentation and making the buyers, it's giving that positive visceral feel when the buyers walk in the door. Walking up to this home, oh, it's a classic centre entrance colonial, rather than walking up to this home and thinking, oh gosh, we've got to paint the trim, and it really doesn't feel very appealing. So it's all about that positive visceral feel. And part of that is also done by staging the home. Now, this is our truck, and this is, why did we wanted to have, we didn't want to have a picture of the team on the side, but we did want to indicate that this is our truck. We have our own truck for staging homes, and this is us standing in front of it.
Newly wrapped.
Newly wrapped.
It's snow on the ground. I've seen,
oh yeah, there's snow on the ground in the back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So what our staging services are at the moment is still virtual consultation. It is pretty straightforward for our staging folks to have you walk them around the home with your phone, showing them, or I've done this many times. I've gone into the home and I've taken a video, and that's gone back to our stagers that work with us. But even while this is all happening, starting to depersonalize and declutter is key. Depersonalizing, really important for a buyer. What we want a buyer to do when they walk in the door is wander around and think, I can imagine myself living in this home. I can imagine myself. And if they sit on the sofa, we're good, we're golden, because we know that they're starting to imagine themselves living in the home with their furniture. But if you've got pictures of your family around, or you've got tchotchkes around, or something that really personalizes your home, the buyers can't really imagine themselves living in the home as easily as what they can if your home's a vanilla, vanilla with not much personality. So even though we want to take the personality out of your home, it's getting you a higher price for the home. So sorry about that. But anyway,
there's a reason behind it.
There is a reason
Trust
behind
us.
it. So staging, it's performed by our in-house professional staging team. We've got a full-time staging coordinator, part-time stagers. We've got our own truck. Now, each home is different as to what the needs are. If it's a vacant home, we come in and stage every single room in the home. If it's an occupied home, and let's say your dining room has been an office for a very long time and you don't have a dining room table, we will bring in a dining room table, because the more we can have the home feel traditional to the buyers, the easier it is for them to imagine living in the home. So remember, that's important. We want the buyers to remember to think about how they would live in the home. So we have about 13, 14 housefuls of furniture.
Don't remind me. Don't remind me.
And, we've got furniture for all needs. And we are progressively, as we mentioned before, we're progressively starting to lift restrictions on staging occupied homes. We had one just the other day where the sellers just left for the day, and we came in with the staging truck and did what we needed to do, and did the photos, video, and 3D tour while they were gone as well. And just having the sellers out for a day, the house was theirs again. Some sellers are moving to their second home, or they're going and staying somewhere else while the home's on the market, so we can actually market the home as being vacant. But I just wanted to show you a couple of examples. This photo here was a photo when this home came on the market previously with another agent, and even though the home was occupied, there were a large number of rooms that didn't have any furniture. It was a bit of, a divorce situation. Some of the furniture left and some wasn't replaced. But the home sat on the market, didn't sell. We came in and staged the home, and staged every room, what was needed, bought in supplemental furniture, and we had competing offers on the home. Here's another, this is the one that I was showing. That was the for sale by owner for 8 months.
Yeah, so where you showed the exterior.
Yeah, the exterior.
Right.
So this was the interior. But have a look at this shot here. This was a listing shot for when it was on the market previously. Here you can see the front door's up here. This is a living room. This is a dining room. And as the buyers would walk around the home, they would be thinking, what do I use this room for? What's this room for? So when a buyer walks around the home and they can't figure out what they would use a room for, you've lost them. And we always know if you see a description of a home with a versatile floor layout or a unique floor plan or something like this, that's a bad thing.
Don't want a unique floor plan
because buyers can't figure it out. But when we went in, we staged this front room up here as the living room. We staged this room here as the dining room. You can see the chandelier, it was the dining room. And we staged this room here as the pre or post dinner drinks room for guests coming over. So the buyers walked in and, oh yeah, this feels really good. Because, you know, we had a bar there and things. But the buyers could see how they could use the layout of the home as well. And again, this was the home that we had competing offers on. This is another home that was completely vacant. It really doesn't give you a good feel about the home. Remember, we want a positive visceral feel when the buyers walk in the door. Staging it when the buyers walk in the door, it feels a lot more homey, if you like, a lot more workable.
House to a home.
Yeah, a house to a home. Here's another home that was on the market, and this was the staging for the family room. Not really exciting. Here's the staging, to make the home feel more inviting. But it's not.
Just on the staging, that prior staging. That was pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Pretty good with the table in the middle there.
Table in the middle. That was it.
I never thought that before. I've never heard you said that before, but yeah, that was rubbish. Sorry, that was rubbish.
Yeah.
When we did it, clearly, it looked like a room, right?
It looks like a room. Yeah. Absolutely, it feels inviting.
Right. But just imagine what the buyers thought when they looked at the single table in the middle.
Yeah. They may not have even made the choice to come and see the home.
That's true.
Which is,
the key,
you've got to have people walking in the door to come and see the home. And that's how you get offers, is when you have buyers walk in the door. So here, this is new construction. New construction is still a wow factor with new construction. Everyone wants new construction. But it's still pretty, not bland, but when you stage it, it makes a dramatic difference. Now, you might look at the furniture that we have in here. Yeah, that's not traditional furniture, but as I mentioned, we have 13 or 14 housefuls worth of furniture, and we have different styles of furniture as well. So we'll stage a traditional home with traditional furniture. We'll stage a more contemporary styled home with more contemporary flair furniture. This was Studio McGee. The design style of the new construction was a Studio McGee design style. So we put in, yes, we bought some Studio McGee style furniture to complement the style of the home. You didn't hear me say that, did you?
I did. Just so you know, I did hear you say that. I already knew that as well. I do the books. Yeah, I do the books. So I not much gets past me.
So we will do anything we can to have that positive, visceral feel when the buyers walk in the door, even buying new furniture, if the style of the home demands it. So now on to Marcus.
Far more important thing.
No.
Oh, okay. Right.
No.
Maybe it's not. No. So, marketing. This used to be called marketing, but clearly it's not marketing anymore, as more and more sellers choose to look at a home in awful lot of detail before they even go in the home. Now it really becomes digital marketing. It's really all about having all of these different pieces in place in order to get you that kind of higher price for your home. So what I thought I would do, instead of going down this list, what I would show you is, if I could just bring it up over here, what does this actually mean in terms of what are the digital aspects of marketing? So every home we bring on the market has its own website. This was a home we sold mid-Feb.
Earlier this year.
Mid-February?
Yeah, we bought it on the market very, very early in the season, deliberately.
Yeah, mid-February. So 45 Candy Street in Arlington. So what this website does, and this kind of mimics everything we've got here, is we want to having done all the preparation, having done all the staging, now we need to showcase the property to the widest group of potential buyers out there, as well as target it to buyers that are particularly interested in this style of home. And in order to do that, we need to show them everything about the home. That's absolutely key. Mimicking what you have in many other aspects of marketing as well. It's very rare that you only see a couple of photos of a car or whatever it may be. There is, get it out there, show all aspects of it so that the buyer can spend a lot of time looking at this online, say, yes, this house works for me, and then go and see the home. It becomes even more important when they were somewhat reluctant to go physically see homes. This is key. So here's the home. Clearly want lots of information about the home. There it is, everything about it, what school system, what the taxes are, and so on. And then we want to lead the potential buyer through the home. So we have a set of narrative and then associated photographs. So we'll kind of walk them through as we anticipate if they were at an open house or if they were at a private showing, they would walk through the home with a narrative that goes along with that, kind of setting the scene for the home as they're looking at it. So here you are, here's the outside, and here we are in the family room area. And you kind of see all the photographs of that home. So you can get a definite sense of what we think the home feels like, and then you can look at the photographs to get a sense of what it actually looked like. So here we are, we carry on through. Here's the dining room and then the kitchen area and so on, upstairs to the bedrooms. That kind of narrative and photograph, very important, leading the buyer through the home, giving them a sense of what it would look like, what it would feel like, to actually live in that home, and that's key. Here's the basement, and then finally the outside. So this was in February, just to show you that we had almost no snow on the ground. This was a February photograph, for example. So as well as that, the home highlights, and then really the key piece for us, this is the 3D tour. Everything that we do with the director in terms of the website, the narrative and the photographs, the videos, all of it is us directing you, the potential buyer, through the home. But that's not really how they do it. In many cases, the buyer wants to spend more time in one room versus another. They'll navigate around it differently, and that's where the 3D tour comes in. Just push this into full screen mode there. This is where the 3D tour comes in. This allows them to walk around the home and look at all different aspects of it. So if we were to stand by the fireplace, for example, what is that view? Here's the front door. Let's go. We could go upstairs, but before we go upstairs, actually, let's go and take a look at the dining room area. So there's the dining room. You see the sun coming in, and then into the kitchen area. And so you're in control, and you can spend as long as you want in the home looking at all different aspects of it. So we think this is key. You can go upstairs. Imagine this is the access to the basement area. There we go. Actually, let's go see the basement. Now here we are in the basement. So you can see all aspects of the home, say for as long as you want. One of the other things that we do is you can see a floor plan. This is the floor plan of the basement, for example. Floor plan, let's do the first floor again. Here's the floor plan of the first floor with the furniture in it, giving you the context, not just the black and white diagrams. We have those as well, but this gives you a sense of what the home looks like, not just with that, the empty spaces with the room sizes on it, but how the furniture's in there.
It gives some perspective as to the size.
Right. You can actually even measure. There's a tool on this that allows you to actually measure. And I did this with somebody the other day. They were looking to remodel a kitchen. We looked at the 3D tour. We did all the measurements off the 3D tour. It's very accurate to get you those measurements. So that's another aspect of this as well. Danny likes this will work for this home because it's quite small. It doesn't really work for a larger home, but it really gives you a sense.
It does work for a larger home. You just don't know how to use it for a larger home.
That may be true. There's many things I don't know how to use.
It's the dollhouse view. It helps you work out, what rooms are above what rooms and things, and it really does help if a home's got 1.5 bathrooms and you want to put a full bathroom somewhere on the second floor. By doing this dollhouse view, you can really see where the bathrooms are below to see whether it would work to be able to sort of take the plumbing up another level. So it's really, really valuable.
Okay. I'm sure it is too. No, it is. So that's a really powerful tool to allow a potential buyer to look around at their leisure. Remember that even if we do have physical open houses, you're going to be restricted to how many people can go in the home. You're going to be restricted to how long you can be in the home, because there's a limit on how many people can physically be in there at the same time. And so you perhaps only got 10 or 15 minutes to physically be inside the home. Here you can spend as long as you want looking at the home, either before you've been in it or after, when you come back, as you kind of think, well, how did it look? Which aspect it was? How many bedrooms? What was the third bedroom looking like? Where was the bathroom? All of those kind of what if questions you might have, all of those can be answered using this 3D technology. So hugely powerful technology. We've been using it now, I think we were saying, for 5 years. Yeah. So very, very powerful piece of technology to use. We also do some videos. We
were getting ready for the pandemic 5 years ago.
5 years ago, yeah, we were indeed. 5 years ago, we were.
That's forward planning.
Ready for the pandemic.
That is forward planning. I just need to say that's forward planning. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I was trying to decide which video I was going to show first. Okay. Actually, I'll show this video first. I thought normally I show the other video, but I'll change my mind. Change it up a little bit. Pivoting. That's right. Yes, that's the word of the day. Last night we pivoted. We panicked because something went wrong last night while we were doing this, but
it went wrong with the streaming to 3 different channels, and we could only do it to one. And
pivot. So
it wasn't exciting at all. No.
So we do a number of videos of the home. We do a video that kind of similar to the website, kind of walks you around the home. Enough of this. Let me show you what it looks like. So here we are. Let me turn the volume down just a little bit so you can hear what I'm saying. Looking at the home, as if you're in there, giving you a better sense than the photographs, but not as good, in my opinion, the 3D tool, although still a very powerful tool to allow you to see what that home...
For the buyers to see
what that home
how the home flows too.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the first video we produce for the home. And then what we do, specifically tailored to social media, I'll talk more about social media in a minute in terms of that being a very powerful platform to get it in front of a large number of people. You need something catchy to actually engage people. And so what we found very effective, and I'll show you this one, this is a lot more fun. What we do is we use it's our dog again.
He's a star.
Right, he has way less hair right now as he just got his haircut today. Me too, actually, for that matter. But it kind of the dog going around the home with a GoPro on his back. Cute, yes, but engaging for social media. And guess what? If they get engaged by the video, right underneath are the links that take you to the website. So it's not just a case of, there's just a video.
Cute dog in the video. It's marketing.
Right, and it takes you directly to that website. Gets great traction out there, lots of views, lots of shares. Hey, did you see this home? So it gets it out there to say it's really about getting out to the widest possible audience out there.
And Glenn, our marketing director, he is really good. He knows exactly what a dog would think. I think he knows what a dog would think. And we watch these videos and giggle away to ourselves, thinking, "Yep, that's what Sudo would think. Yep, that's what."
That's what he would do. Yeah. So that's where the video comes in. A couple of videos, in this case, top 5 reasons you'd love this home. We stopped printing brochures probably mid-March, because what we were finding is that potential buyers at the open house were reluctant to pick them up. So we took that brochure, we put it online, and here you have, this is the exact brochure we would have printed at the open house, printed and had available. Actually did have available at the open house. But in here you've got, again, everything about the home, the floor plan. There's that schematic floor plan, narrative about the home, some photographs that kind of show you the highlights of the home, and then key to allow people to understand what the market in Arlington is like, because many people were wondering what's going on with inventory, where are prices, those kind of questions. And so just some choice stats, some important stats in terms of what's happening with the Arlington market, that's in there too. as well as a map to show you the location of the home in relation to the schools and public transport and everything about the home. So that's the print brochure. We've gone online with that. We always were online, but this is the only way you get to see the brochure now is online, as we don't physically print it anymore. And then finally, some maps that show the relationship of the house to the schools and the relationship, clearly very important here in Arlington, relationship of the house to the public transport in the town. So that's there as well. So that's really, really important. So that kind of wraps up. We go back to the PowerPoint. That kind of shows you the key components of the marketing aspect of the home. The next thing is, having done all that work, having done got the photographs up and running, having done the floor plans, the websites and all that, let's get it out in front of a large number of people. But before you think about that, what's important really is
But hang on, we should talk about the fact that one of the things that we did change this year was doing virtual open houses, because virtual open houses are important because the 3D tours, they go in the living areas. The videos go in the living areas. But what buyers do when they go to an open house is they go down into the unfinished basement. They go and look in the utility room. They go and look in the closets, because the 3D tours don't go in closets. They open up the closets. They walk into the walk-in closet. They do all of these things going outside. That's one thing that our 3D tours and our videos didn't necessarily do as well as a buyer physically being in an open house. So this is something that we do for every home that we bring on the market. We do a virtual open house, and then it's created and stays on the virtual on the website that we have all of the digital assets on as well, so that a buyer can check out this open house. You're looking for one.
I wonder if I can find one, actually. We're talking a little bit more. I'll see if I can find one. I have it on here somewhere. I know I've got them somewhere. Maybe it's worthwhile showing you what they look like.
So part of the marketing as well talks about social media ad campaigns. So we do a social media ad campaign for all of the houses. We'll do a coming soon. We'll do a just listed and a home of the week. Those types of things. So we're reaching out broadly with our social media ad campaigns. What we are also doing with those, though, is we're keeping within, I think, probably a 15-mile radius of the home, because it's no point spending all our money on doing an ad campaign in California, because those are not the buyers typically for a home in Arlington. So we'll do 15 miles radius and get it massively out there, broad strokes. But then what we do is we start to do targeted. Can you find one?
I'll run it up on YouTube when we're done.
Okay.
Can't find one on my hard drive right now.
Okay. Targeted email marketing. Well, I'll let Marcus keep on talking about that.
Sorry, I wondered if I could find you a quick virtual open house. For next time, I'll actually do that. It didn't occur to me to actually to show you that virtual open house. Does marketing matter? Danny talked a lot about that.
But the direct correlation.
Oh yeah.
The direct correlation between.
You just have to look at the numbers in terms of the number of people who are looking at the website, the 3D tour, the video. It took a dramatic jump as we stopped doing open houses, essentially. They had no other way of viewing the home. That's continued, though. Even though we're now able to do virtual open houses, in some cases able to do real open houses, we're trialing those just to see how that will work.
And they're not working, so the buyers still aren't willing to come to a physical open house.
And there is, I think, a challenge with them as well, because if 50 groups turn up to go and do a physical open house, and then you can only have 2 groups in a house at the same time, all of a sudden the logistics become very difficult.
And you get very disappointed buyers. That's the key thing. You don't want disappointed buyers annoyed at this house because they can't even get in to see it. So it's it's really important.
What we found is that the number of views of these has continued at those very, very high levels. So we're getting to the point now where buyers are beginning to expect to see everything there. And if a house doesn't have it and they're not able to do a showing of it, guess what? That home probably isn't going to sell, or it most definitely isn't going to sell for the highest price. So marketing really does matter. We're seeing to some extent business as usual, reverting many agents, not ourselves, but many agents reverting to that kind of business as usual. I think that's a mistake. The numbers that we're seeing, the analysis we're doing on the number of people viewing whatever the website,
well, a 3D
tour.
A 3D tour, we know that if we get 40 plus views of the 3D tour in the first couple of days that it's on the market, that will translate to about 20 plus private showings in the 4 or 5 days that the home's on the market. If we get 20 plus private showings in that 4 or 5 days, then we're talking about offers. And we had similar statistics with that, with a home that we just reviewed offers on yesterday in Burlington, and it had 20 offers on the home. So, you know, if you're saying, is the market back? The market's back.
But it's key that that buyers have a different expectation today than they had previously.
Yeah.
And I think the realtor community needs to react to that. If the realtors are to get the highest price for their home, the consumers have moved on from spending Sunday afternoon at an open house. Now they're looking at everything online. If they like what they see online, they're going to the open house. That's the way they're doing it. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. And so realtors need to react to that. And unfortunately, having seen a jump in the number of 3D tours and videos, we're now very much back to business as usual.
Where there's no business as usual is that a lot of agents are not doing those things.
Right. Yeah. And that, I think, is the mistake. And that's what's... Anyway, let me carry on.
Yeah.
So, social media. Key to getting the house in front of a wide number of people. That's key. And social media is the key platform to enable us to do that. We do a number of posts, for example, on Facebook, on Instagram, coming soon, just listed, home of the week, and so on. The idea behind this is to get that in front of a broad number of people. Same with the video we showed you of the dog going around the home. That was all to get engagement on social media, getting it broad in terms of the number of buyers that view the home. Having done that, the next thing to do, of course, is to target it. Target those emails to people who have shown an interest in that home, that town, that price point. We have a large number of potential buyers in our database, and we, as a home comes on the market, so we focus and get that in front of all of those people to make sure that, hey, you're interested in a $700,000 condo in Arlington. Guess what? We have one coming on the market. So we're targeting them as well. So broad with social media, and they're very targeted then with an email campaign, hitting them kind of both broad and narrow. So that's key. But in order for that to be successful, and if I hate to go back, but just to kind of show you, in order for that to be successful, you have to have engaging content on social media, otherwise it will just skim by. And that's why having high quality photographs, having somewhere for them to go, having a website with all of this information behind it is absolutely key to get that engagement, to get that sharing that you get on social media. That's key. So that's kind of marketing, and back then through teamwork.
Yeah, so I mean, in our normal seminars, we go into detail in this section, but look, you know, at this point in time, we felt that it was probably more important just to talk a little bit about the fact that the client is I know it's cliche, the client is the center of our universe. I mean, but it's true. We have, you know, the agent working with the client. We have a listing coordinator in our team who works on helping us get the home on the market so that we do everything possible that needs to be done seamlessly and less stress to the seller getting the home on the market. We have a marketing coordinator. His job is to market the client's home. Our staging coordinator, her job and her stages that work with her are to make sure the home looks and feels as good as it possibly can when the home comes on the market. Preparation phase. We have someone in our team, and her job is to assist with preparation, organising the contractors, doing all of that sort of stuff to help you. Because this is, selling a home is one of the most stressful times that people can have. We want to make it, I think one of the things that we say is, when we say why choose us, the number one thing is relax, we've got this. But the closing coordinator, once the home's under agreement, we have someone whose job is to help shepherd the home with the agent, to help shepherd the home through successfully to closing and take the stress off the sellers. So I just thought that was important to just sort of say, look, the client's us, the center of our universe.
And how it takes a large group of people to make that a stress-free process. It's not really a case of just an agent doing everything. It really is having people whose job it is to shepherd. Preparation is a good example. Understanding which contractor resources, understanding what works in combination of Susan, listing coordinator, and the agent giving you that advice. And that's really, that combination of all of those people is what makes that a much less stressful process. So, buying in, sorry, I was too fast. Let me go back. Buying in 2020, the when and the how. So, we know the when, we're now in the buyer confidence return phase, so how about the how? So, we did see in the past some towns preventing showings of occupied homes. That's beginning to lift. As Danny mentioned, perhaps it may come back, but right now we don't foresee that, but it's hard to know. We also had some instances where buyers agents were not willing to accompany showings. I showed a number of buyers' homes where the buyer's agent simply wasn't prepared to actually be there. That's again beginning to change, but be cautious about this. There is still some restrictions that apply in this situation. We also had some situations which were somewhat scary. You might anticipate you're going into a vacant home. You might be comfortable going into a home that you think is vacant, only to find that that home is not vacant. And we had that a couple of times this year, where a buyer and the agent the buyer's agent went into the home, only to find it's fully occupied and they're still here. And
they're still there during the showing.
Little bit scary. So be prepared for those kind of scary situations arising. Just kind of be cognizant of those. Then, gloves and masks are required. That's kind of de rigueur for all of us today. I got my haircut yesterday with a mask on. I don't know how they did it, but they managed to. So, that's kind of becoming something of the norm. But, there are a number of options that you can go through here. As you think about how are you going to buy this home, how are you going to do a combination of virtual plus restricted private showings. As Danny mentioned, a number of listings adding seller's disclosures. We're now finding more and more of our sellers are doing that. 3D tours, videos. Be comfortable looking at those assets, assuming they're there, as I just mentioned. In many cases, they won't be. So that's the norm. Hopefully, we'll get back to that situation where it is the norm. It is for us, but not for other agents. But it really is that combination of virtual plus restricted private showings. Even if you're allowed to go in the home, it's likely that the time we'll spend in that home may well be 10 or 15 minutes. That's it. That's all the opportunity you'll have.
We should mention that there was a period of time, just for a couple of weeks, it was a real flash in the pan, but agents were expecting buyers to write offers on homes that they hadn't even seen. And that, thankfully, has gone by the wayside now.
I never thought that was
just...
That was muted as a possible way, and people were describing buying a home as the saying of buying a car on Carvana, and clearly it's not the same, because if you don't like the car you buy on Carvana, you can send it back after 7 days. That's not the case with a home. So I thought those when people were comparing it to buying a car, for example, it's just not the same.
Unrealistic.
It was an unrealistic expectation at the time, and certainly that's not the case today. So, but still, somewhat restricted in terms of showings. Restricted too in terms of the inspections. We found the situation even recently where inspectors were not allowing buyers to attend. We had the situation where an inspector wouldn't go in the home unless the home had been vacant for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
In this case, that was the case.
Luckily, because the sellers had moved away for a couple of weeks, while the home was on the market. But that's so unrealistic.
Right, that's less and less the case, I think, at this point. But be prepared for that. And I think more likely is that only one of, if there's a couple buying a home, only one of them will be allowed to go in with the inspector. I've had that situation arise. So be comfortable just looking at the photos, perhaps a video, maybe a phone consultation. The challenge with that, in my opinion, is that it really doesn't give you the flavor of the home. The inspector talks about an awful lot of things. The report talks about a relatively narrow group of things, usually what's wrong with the home. And so you miss all that color of the inspector telling you, for example, how you change the filter in the air conditioning unit. You're going to miss all of that. So you really do need to have confidence kind of in that extended team that you have, and in yourself to some extent. And we find that many buyers don't. So, say limited access, buyer's agents not doing very much, inspectors not allowing. So you really need to have some confidence really in that extended team. Financing, I talked about this before. There is still that little bit of tightening. More importantly, we've not seen it on a large scale, but it's something to think about. Appraisals are often drive-by. Appraisals are not actually going in the home. And that gives us the potential for lower appraisals because the listing agent's not able to meet the appraiser, not able to give them the full background of the home, how many offers there are and so on. We always meet the appraiser at the home, give them the full picture, provide some comps and so on. Not able to do that, and so there is this potential that appraisals may come in lower. So don't be surprised as you write an offer that you're not asked to put in that clause that says that the sale is not subject to the home appraising. This is some of the rationale behind that, because the appraisers are not able to get the full details of the home. So don't be surprised if the listing agent asks for that. It may well be a consequence of the appraiser, say, just being able to drive the outside, seeing it from the outside. Some things around that. So, a shameless plug. Tomorrow night, yes, Thursday night, we are doing a full hour or more probably on the buying process in this market. Not me. Myself and Rachel will be doing it. We can get Rachel's technology going. It'll be Rachel and I. We're going to focus a little bit on smart decisions around the stats of what's going on with the town. A little bit of what we talked about here this evening. So some of it will be duplication. But after that, once that's out of the way, after about 15 minutes, we'll focus very much on all aspects of buying a home in general, but also tailoring it to buying a home in this environment that we find ourselves in. So if you are interested in buyers, specifically a buyer's seminar, 6:30, I think tomorrow evening, sit back, relax, glass of wine, soda, whatever it takes, sit yourself down, listen to us live stream all over again, this time specifically around buyers. This is a more generic presentation. So shameless plug for tomorrow night. Not like I'm selling anything. I'm just saying, hey, if you've got nothing else to do tomorrow night and you're interested in buying, grab a drink and sit back and relax. So, kind of wrap it up really, what does virtual selling and virtual buying mean in this market? A lot of virtual consultations, perhaps from a selling perspective, virtual consultations, virtual market analysis, electronic signatures, e-recording at the registry. Something that we are rolling out over the next couple of weeks is this idea of a listing dashboard, so that you can see exactly where the transaction is. One screen here shows what it's like if you're before you're on the market, when a specific activity is planned, so you know exactly what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. And then on the other side, this is a snapshot of what you will see in terms of how many views you're getting, in this case of the 3D tour, how many views of the floor plan and so on. Lots of information there, real time in terms of what's happening with your listing. So that's the listing dashboard that we're going to roll out in the next couple of weeks.
And I should say we already have the listing dashboard out, and we have had it operational for about 2 years on our website. But what Marcus is talking about coming operational in a couple of weeks is an app that you can have it on your phone as a seller, because this is all for the seller. This isn't for us. This is for the seller to know what's going on with the whole process of their home being on the market. That's being developed into an app right now. I think you've just got,
as we speak, a little bit of testing to do, specifically on that graph there, and then we're good to go.
Cool.
From a buying perspective, very similar, of course. Virtual buying, virtual selling, virtual buying mean in this market? consultations, a lot of digital marketing, be comfortable looking at the property, looking at those digital assets, as Danny mentioned, electronic signatures, virtual and handoff inspections, e-signing, e-recording at the registry, and so in restricted showings, and also, surprise, surprise, a buying dashboard. We have this again today. This is the buying dashboard that we're going to be seeing rolled out in the app in the next couple of weeks, hopefully in mid-June, I hope, to roll it out then. So that's kind of virtual selling, kind of wrap up virtual selling, virtual buying. I wanted to kind of wrap it up with that one, and with that.
No, we have a question.
More.
We have a question.
Okay,
that,
oh dear.
I'm hoping Karen is still on, but let's answer it as well.
Okay.
Karen had a question about the assessed value. I
Okay.
explained a little bit that there's no correlation between the assessed value and the sales value, but that we could talk a little bit further about it at the end.
Okay,
so
I can
you
do
go.
that. So there are a number of different valuations of a home. For example, the assessed value, the appraised value, the Zestimate. There are other computed numbers as well. Let me kind of go through two of those, which are the most important ones. The assessed values is there, as I explained to buyers, for one reason and one reason only, and that is that it is the number that the town uses to calculate your taxes. It's primarily based on public records, and as we look at public records, an awful lot, probably 60, 70, maybe even 80% of the time, public records differs from the home, the actual home itself. So perhaps there's been a basement's been finished, for example,
Or an extension.
right? Something's happened to that home that means that it's 200 square feet larger or 300 square feet larger. That's not reflected in public records. The assessed value is primarily based upon public records, and therefore the assessed value will be lower than it would be if they went in and looked at the home. So there are also some technical reasons around Proposition 2.5. that the town is not able to raise the total tax revenue for the town by more than 2.5%, 2.5% a year. That has implications if house valuation has been rising at more than 2.5% a year. It has in Arlington in many years. And so for technical reasons, but also poor public record information, it's very rare to see public records and, the assessed value and the market value actually correlate. Also, if you imagine a town is very popular, there may be some competition on the homes. The home we showed you at 45 Candia came on the market at 800,000 and sold for over 900,000.
958.
There we are. So is the assessed value based upon the 800, or is it based upon the value that a collection of buyers thought they were willing to pay for that home? So there are a range of different reasons why the assessed value and the market value just do not correlate, and really it almost doesn't make sense to look at the assessed value when you're thinking about what the market value should be. You want to say something?
I was just going to say, I mean, the way to have a good estimate of what the market value is to get a market analysis from an agent. Now, we, as our tagline is, we've got a data-driven approach to real estate. We find, and other people find, that our market analyses are pretty well spot on. So we can give you a pretty good idea of what your home is worth just by coming in and doing a quick view around your home, and then going away and spending some time doing a market analysis and pulling in data and that sort of thing. So if you want to know what your home is worth, happy to come in and
Sure.
do a market analysis.
Let me talk a little bit about Zestimates, because that's important too, actually, because many people ask us, well, there's estimates 300, 400,000, 500,000, 600,000. Is my home worth that amount of money? So the Zestimate's interesting in that it's just like a market analysis, except they never actually go inside the home. They look at it from the outside. They look at the picture from the outside. They look at public records too. So they don't actually go inside the home. So you imagine a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom Cape. One that was renovated in 1970 and one was renovated in 2019. Clearly, the valuation of the home that was renovated in 2019 is much higher than the home that was renovated 20 years ago. The Zestimate cannot take that into account. they're trying, but today they cannot take it into account. So I describe the Zestimate as very much an estimate of the valuation, but I haven't been inside your home. That's what it comes down to. And as Danny said, the only way to get a true valuation of the home is the market analysis, where we look at the candidate home, your home if you like, and look at similar homes, what similar homes sell for, and then do a compare and contrast. And that's the key difference between a Zestimate, for example, and a market analysis. We do a compare and contrast. Better location, better yard, better kitchen, slightly larger, whatever it may be. Look at a whole series of factors. Factor that into, would that home sell for less or more than the relevant homes that we're looking at. So that's our market analysis. So almost every other, be it Redfin has a Zestimate, Zillow has a Zestimate, the assessed value, what a friend thinks your home is worth, all of those are wrong to a lesser or greater degree. The Zestimate can be completely wrong if, for example, it's a relatively it's a cape probably built in the 50s, let's say, but it's been completely renovated. A Zestimate can be anywhere from 20 to 30% wrong. So don't take any notice of any of those valuations, really. The way to do it is, as Danny said, to actually get a
real
market analysis. That will give you a sense of, now I can see my home and I can see this other home. Yes, it's better than mine. It's worse than mine. Therefore, I should sell for more or less than that one.
Yeah, yeah. So, as we mentioned, look, we've been almost going 2 hours. I'm sorry about that. But we had quite a few questions coming along. You saw me typing away while that was happening.
I'll try to do it while you were talking about it.
So I hope that I answered them satisfactorily.
If not, then reach out to us.
And yes, someone wanted some condo stats for Arlington as well. So I said if they can private message me, then I can send them the condo stats that relate to that.
Yep.
So anyway, look, it's really challenging times out there. We understand. Real estate is back. There are still buyers who want to buy, and there are still sellers who want to sell, and we're going to do everything in our power to fill you in on everything that's going on with the real estate market, along with making it as stress-free as possible. But please stay safe out there,
we'll see you again in a month with some updated stats, or tomorrow if you're interested in buying. Another shameless plug for the buyer seminar tomorrow night. So we'll see you again in a month with the next update. So with that, bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.